What is up, my comic comrades? Today we're diving into the recently concluded Marvel miniseries with X-Men: The Trial of Magneto. There has been a lot going on with X-Men in comics over the past 2 to 3 years, and in this 5-issue series, the Scarlet Witch is brutally murdered, and her own father, Magneto, is the prime suspect. But Magneto is also one of the founders and leaders of the mutant nation of Krakoa, and his trial could upend everything he has fought to build for mutant kind. And now let's find out if Magneto is guilty of killing his own daughter in The Trial of Magneto, issues 1 and 2. Issue 1 starts off with Northstar, Daken, and Rachel Summers investigating a murder, with each of them using their powers to see what evidence they could find at the scene. Eventually, several members of X-Force, X-Factor, and the X-Men are all investigating the same crime scene. We then get a panel of Rachel using her powers to get a replay, so to speak, of Scarlet Witch to see where she was running and who she was running from before she was murdered. We then see panels of Scarlet Witch being dragged into the bushes, with Northstar saying to Daken, "None of this adds up. Why wasn't she using her magic? How does someone get the jump on someone who controls all of reality? What kind of monster would it take to bring her down at all, let alone like this? She's the Scarlet Witch." As it seems, she was easily manhandled. We are then taken to Scarlet Witch's body, where we see more mutants such as Prodigy, Eye-Boy, and more start examining Wanda's body to figure out how she died, as well as any clues to her murderer. Daken then says she was dragged backwards by the neck, one arm hooked around her throat, and the attacker's other hand was shoving hard against the back of her head, like this. Prodigy then says she was fighting so hard to remove the airflow obstruction crushing her windpipe that her fingernails ripped back and she began bleeding from her nail beds. Eye-Boy then speaks up saying she was clawing at the murder weapon, not her attacker, because there's no biological trace evidence that isn't hers. Wolverine then asks his son Daken, "What else do you smell, son? You're missing something." He answers, "There's something inorganic. Wanda's hands were bound behind her back, but there's no one doing it. So it's either magic or," and Polaris jumps in saying, "metallic." At this point, we get a double-page spread of all these mutants continuing to examine and investigate Scarlet Witch's death. We are then taken to the Grove in Krakoa, where we see the Quiet Council of Krakoa discussing whether or not they should bring the Scarlet Witch back to life, because they have the power to resurrect her, as we find out, since Wanda and Pietro are the only non-mutants to deceive Cerebro long enough for there to be an actual backup of them. Magneto is pushing for them to bring Scarlet Witch back to life, borderline frantic about it, with Mystique saying, "You seem very interested in Scarlet Witch's resurrection, Magneto. One might begin to suspect you have ulterior motives." And when Magneto finds out that groups like X-Factor and X-Force are investigating her murder and body, he freaks out. He starts saying, "You allowed multiple potential suspects with supernatural abilities to remain present at the time of her autopsy? Have you all lost your minds? Someone could be tampering with the evidence." From across the room, Emma Frost says, "That sounds like a convenient excuse if you find yourself accused." At which point, Charles Xavier says, "Enough, let's vote." And the majority of the council voted to not bring Scarlet Witch back to life, which infuriates Magneto so much that he starts crushing Professor X's helmet with his head still inside it. But Kitty Pryde just faces her hand through Magneto's helmet saying, "Stand down or I'll peel the brainstem right off your spinal cord like a Twizzler." So of course he does, allowing Charles to take off his helmet with his head bleeding as it was being crushed. Needless to say, Magneto storms off, but is greeted by Northstar, Wolverine, Cyclops, Hope, Rachel, and more, who want to take Magneto in for questioning as they think he killed Wanda. But when has Magneto ever been one to go peacefully? Answer, never. The comic then takes us to Tommy Maximoff as we see him grieving over his mother's death. After this, we are taken back to the Krakoan Gate, as Charles Xavier has invited the Avengers there to tell them about the loss of their team member, the Scarlet Witch. When he greets them at the gate, he says, "Thank you for meeting me, Vision and friends. I wanted to tell you in person. I'm afraid I have some terrible news," at which point Vision already knows and starts breaking down, with Captain America consoling him. Meanwhile, Magneto is not going peacefully, and I gotta say, he is straight up holding his own against several of the most powerful mutants in all of Marvel. Dude is freaking wrecking shop. But when his daughter Polaris shows up, things get even crazier, with her laying into her dad saying things like, "You tried to break me, tried to rearrange the pieces of me back into your perfect daughter, but you failed. Your efforts backfired, and you only made me stronger. You killed her." And as her and Cyclops and other X-Men try to blast Magneto, something takes him away super quickly. And we find out it's none other than Quicksilver, who's about to deliver the death blow to Magneto. But he's stopped by Northstar. But at this point, he's unconscious due to multiple punches from Quicksilver and is taken back to the Healing Gardens Hospital in Krakoa. Towards the end of the issue, we start getting flashbacks of Scarlet Witch, seeing a white hooded figure stabbing her in the stomach. As we get captions from Scarlet Witch saying, "I am the Scarlet Witch, and I am immediately acquainted with grief. Every single person I have ever harmed, I have grieved for them all. I ache for what has been lost, what I have caused, a tempest of anguish. And now I grieve for myself, because I was killed. I died, and yet I know that I am not dead. As the issue ends with Scarlet Witch suspended with flowers all around her. Issue 2 opens up with Magneto in bed saying, "Enjoying the view, Charles? I know you're here. You forgot I have decades of experience when it comes to recognizing the greeting presence of your telepathic needling. What game are you even playing at, Charles? Am I being surveillanced alone in my own home in hopes I just might happen to confess the murder while talking aloud to myself? What is the meaning of this?" We then see a massive Hope looking down saying, "Sorry, it's my fault." On the next page, we learn that they're inside of Magneto's consciousness, with Charles saying, "No, Hope, it's quite alright. I should have warned you that Magneto is formidable at evading psychic inquiry even without his helmet." He then learns that even though she's helping Charles, she doesn't agree with this method as she thinks it's a form of torture, saying it's tactical manipulation. To extract a confession, you had to know I wouldn't be happy about being asked to help with this at all, let alone you expect me to keep it a secret from the rest of the 5. Elsewhere, we see the Avengers finally land inside of Krakoa and are greeted by the X-Men. Cyclops then tells Captain America and the rest of the Avengers, "Since this is your first time to Krakoa, we hoped we could give you a tour of the island and show you around before you retrieve Wanda's remains. Would that be okay?" He replies, "Yes, that would be nice." As they're giving a tour of the island, Tony Stark sees Emma Frost in a sexy bathing suit and says, "Might I just say, from a modern businessman to another, your tangible assets are looking very valuable at the moment, exceptionally well developed." She then ignores him and goes to hug Wasp, saying, "Girls, did you hear something?" With several of them behind Tony saying, "No, mother." Wasp then says, "Sorry about Iron Man, he's feral. You know how it is." Elsewhere, Rachel Summers, Daken, and Northstar find that Magneto took the Cerebral helmet from its cradle. We then get another page of Scarlet Witch floating in the air with captions of her saying, "Magic is lawless. I coalesce into being from the yearning clutches of eternity, drawing forth a new form out of the void, stardust and darkness. And then I run before the cloaked figure reappears and kills me once more. It isn't a normal death. I burst apart into fragments of life like vestigial confetti scattered across the astral realm. And then nothing. Darkness. Darkness and then rebirth. Darkness, and then I wake up." So maybe Scarlet Witch is not dead. Who would have thought? Comic books, am I right? Anyway, we are then taken back to Hope, who's using her powers to wake Magneto up out of his sleep. She then says, "You don't have much time before Xavier gets back. Wake up." She then tells him, "Time to go. You need to make sure the Avengers don't see Wanda's body. Now, do you understand me?" He says, "Hope, what?" And she tells him, "Do you understand? Do not let them see her body." He looks at her saying, "I understand." We are then taken back to the Avengers, where Captain America gives Quicksilver his condolences. But right after this, Quicksilver starts talking to Northstar, and while they're talking, barbed wire starts wrapping around Quicksilver. And we quickly find out that's because Magneto is attacking him and the rest of the mutants. We also see he's donned his OG red and purple costume again. And yet again, Magneto starts soloing the X-Men and X-Factor, but also the freaking Avengers because it's everyone against Magneto, and he is straight up wrecking shop. He's controlling Captain America's shield and even using his powers to tame and chuck Vision. And when Kyle, Northstar's boyfriend, comes through the Krakoan gate or portal, Magneto grabs him and wraps him in metal, saying to the Avengers, "Leave Krakoa or I'll kill him." Captain America then asks, "Is this really what you want to do, Magneto? To harm your own people?" He then lands on the ground saying, "No, this is not what I want. But I do want you to leave." Captain asks, "Are you trying to keep us from taking Wanda's body home?" He replies, "None of you know what home means to Wanda." Quicksilver then shows up saying, "I think I actually do." Magneto then says, "Fine, it was me. I did it. I'm the one who killed her. And I wanted you to leave because I am guilty of first-degree murder. Now take me away before I change my mind and decide to bring this place down to its knees after all." He continues to say, "Well, what are you waiting for? I murdered the Scarlet Witch." And then on the next panel, Scarlet Witch shows up saying, "I'm afraid I have to disagree, on several points actually." Mystique, watching from far away in the tree, says, "Well, this should be interesting." And as the Scarlet Witch lands, she says, "Hello everyone. I'm really moved that you all came to help me. But really, everything is alright. I just want to put this all behind me and let's get back to normal." As she grabs Vision and starts kissing him. And with that, the issue ends. Man, this is taking me for a loop. I mean, obviously we knew that they weren't going to keep the Scarlet Witch dead, but I didn't think they were going to bring her back in the second issue of the series. Or maybe this isn't really the real Scarlet Witch, or it could just be some part of some bigger scheme and she faked her death. We don't really know. This could literally go several different ways, and we'll just have to wait till this story wraps up next month with issues 3 through 5. So keep an eye out for that, or better yet, support your creators by picking up this series for yourself, and then come back here to join in on the conversation where we drop our review and conclusion of the story. Either way, we want to know what you guys think of the comic book down in the comments. And that brings today's episode to a close, but if you like today's episode, watch this one right here, and if you like all of our content, subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the channel grow. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things comics.